GenCon 2025 was the second GenCon since Renegade's revival of Heroscape, and I'm glad that I was able to attend both years. There's just something about the Heroscape convention environment that I absolutely love, and it's never failed to disappoint me so far. The Heroscape tournaments were located in Hall D in one of the main convention rooms, and Renegade had their big Heroscape booth set up in the dealer hall, and the pictures that you're seeing throughout this intro are taken from a combination of both locations and show some of the upcoming releases that Renegade was teasing throughout the weekend. I did play the team tournament on Sunday with Major Q23 as my partner, but unfortunately I forgot to film it. We ran a long-range combo with me having Microcore X2, Kaemin, and Isamu, and Q23 running Frav, Laglor, and Hydra. The idea behind this particular army combo is that Laglor boosts friendly figures as well as your own figures, so Laglor is increasing the range of Q23's Krav and my Microcore. We both also have a two-part army of sorts that really wants to play in waves, with me opening Micros and then having Kaemin behind them, and Q23 opening Krav with having Hydra behind them, and to a lesser extent, also Laglor. We both also had a special attack in our army, which is always nice. We started off 2-0, but then lost our final two games to end at 2-2, with both final opponents having a Frostclaw's core, which wasn't a great matchup for us, especially once they get to max height. It was a fun event though, glad we got to play in it, and a special thanks to Dadscaper who ran the team event both years at GenCon since Heroscape has been back. It's great having a Sunday event to play, so thank you very much for that. There was a lot of cool Heroscape stuff at GenCon 2025, but also some things that definitely need to be improved moving forward. Starting with some of the highlights, they had a ton of game space with maps in a prime location. It's awesome to walk into the main ballroom and have Heroscape just immediately staring you in the face. They ran a big main event, which had pretty good attendance. The booth in the dealer's hall having tons of great spoilers is a nice touch too, fun place to go throughout the weekend. There were more side events than there had been in 2024. However, many of those side events were happening at the same time, meaning you couldn't play in all of them, and they were still open time slots. This is my biggest complaint, and the place where I hope Renegade will improve the most next year. I just see no reason for there to be time slots where there aren't Heroscape events happening, especially with that much space and maps set up. This year, the Friday afternoon/evening slot and the Saturday afternoon/evening slot effectively had no events, which is just a real bummer for people who are going mainly to play Heroscape, of which I am definitely one. There were several Saturday side events, but they all started at 11 a.m., meaning that anyone who lost in the main event in top 16 or higher was locked out of playing any other events all day, and there was no event for anyone in the evening that day. Personally, I think having one event per time slot is the absolute minimum, and that having two, maybe one contemporary and one all-time event per time slot would be an awesome stretch goal beyond that. Basically, I'm hoping there'll be more reason for the Heroscape diehards to want to come to GenCon 2026. This next one is a more minor complaint, but I think that Swiss Heroscape tournaments should determine top cut by having a record cutoff rather than having a preset number of top cut spots. This was especially a problem in 2024, when two 5-1 players missed out on the top cut by virtue of a SOS tiebreaker. But having buys to reward the top few records and then having a clear goal that needs to be achieved, whether that's 5-1, 4-2, or something else, is just a good benchmark and a nice thing to have in my opinion. Stir Heroscape and I got an extra game in for fun one night, outside of the bounds of the formal tournaments. He had wanted to play a classic 5-10/24 game with Renegade points, because Knights really need that full 510 points now, and couldn't quite fit into the 500-point all-time tournament. Heavies still fit this total really well, as the core is 490/18, so I just subbed out Isamu for Marku to better use the extra 10 points above where the all-time tournament was. Heavies vs Knights, a classic matchup if ever there was one. The glyphs here are Disengage on the near side, which is super good for Knights but pretty useless to me, and Loden on the far side, which isn't particularly useful for either of us. So this battle is going to happen around the Disengage glyph. I win the opening initiative, which is a big bummer in a lot of other events this weekend, but really doesn't matter in this game, as both of us are incentivized to fully slow roll our armies in this one, with neither of us having any ranged units to draw in the action faster, and with no Wannet glyph on the map. I will say that I really prefer having heavies in this matchup. I think they're a significant favorite here. Knights have the advantage of getting to fit 1x more of the squad, but Grimnak is just so good, and my heavies are going to have better stats than knights most of the time, as heavies next to Grimnak and in Narak's aura are 4-5 base stats. Gilbert's movement bonus is less useful against a fellow all-melee army, as the knights could just take the time to slow roll without it, and honestly still be fine. And Grimnak is way better than Gilbert at contesting height, as Grimnak can kill a knight on height 100% of the time, letting a heavy replace it, whereas Gilbert attacking up is going to be a 3v5 or a 3v6, which is going to miss most of the time, leaving Gilbert in a really bad spot. My goal in the opening was to claim the level 3 snow height outside my start zone, so I would be in position to kill knights on disengage while slowly moving all my heavies up there in one mass. The order of using my heroes doesn't matter as much here as in some other games, because we won't be fighting right away, and they both have time to get to where they want to go, but I go with Grimnak first, as it'll take him 3 moves to reach the level 3 height, and then develop a squad of heavies up onto level 2. Sir H hits a 1 on dispatch, so only 4 knights are able to get up on the plateau this turn. I move Grimnak again, as I really want to get him up to level 3 this round, in case a few knights get bold ideas and charge on in, and double move 1 heavy up to max height, and bring up 3 more. I'll want to block off all other level 3 heights with heavies to protect Grimnak, so I'm starting that process now. Sir H hits a 2 on dispatch this time, which is the magic number for getting out of the start zone on this particular map, and a bunch more knights move up to level 2. Grimnak then ascends to height, and I fully wall off the space in front of him with 2 heavies, double moving 2 and bringing up 2 new ones from the start zone. That's 3 heavies I've moved twice this round, which is a bit high, but I really want to protect Grimnak from any variance here, as he's my win condition in this matchup, and a knight throwing a random 3 out of 3 into him and doing 2 to 3 wounds early is how I lose. And I'll have time early next round to bring up the rest of the heavies anyways. Another thing that's nice about this setup is that, while Grimnak is protected, as soon as knights kill a heavy, I can bring Grimnak into that spot and chomp plus attack from height. Sir H gets another 2 on dispatch, and now 15 of the 20 knights are up on level 2 at the end of this turn. I win initiative in round 2, which is a bit more disappointing, as Sir H can definitely go for an init switch from round 2 to round 3 now, but I move up Narak to cover the pod and bring up 4 new heavies from the start zone, protecting Narak. Gilbert finally joins the others on the plateau, and Sir H rolls a 3 on dispatch. While Sir H was thinking, I decided that my army could use Scavarith, so I plopped him back there behind the heavies, wondering how long it would take for Sir H to notice. We now see knights finally reach level 3, with all of those stragglers from the start zone finally joining them. Unfortunately, Sir H notices my nefarious Scavarith intentions quite quickly, and he is banished back to the void. I leave both heroes where they are, and bring up the rest of my heavies from the start zone. With me having lost initiative this round, my plan is just to hunker down in place, on height, across the potential initiative switch. Sir H hits a 2 on dispatch, and knights roll further forward, but still quite cautiously. I then do a complete no-op turn. Sir H leaves Gilbert where he is and rolls a 4 on dispatch, and knights flood the center height. This was an interesting turn, as I see a lot of merit to knights coming in to attack here instead. Gilbert could have moved here, and supported 2 knights attacking into heavies, where if they got kills and the initiative switch, they could have gotten to Grimnak. Definitely a big risk, as if they don't get kills and I win initiative, they're screwed. But this is the part of the game where you have to start asking the questions, when will my opponent come in, and when should I come in? From my perspective, I don't plan to leave my current position until I lose an initiative, as there's no reason for me to take any risks prior to that point. So I can just sit here waiting for knights to come in, or for me to lose an init. The issue for Sir H is, if I do lose an initiative, chomp one heavy, and then get the switch and retreat back, which I would do, then I'm up on points, and he has to come in anyways to fight me on height. Essentially, the fact that Grimnack's kill is an auto kill gives me an edge in that particular game of chicken. But Sir H decides to wait. I lose the round 3 initiative, which is perfect, and Sir H moves Gilbert up and rolls a 2 on dispatch, and decides that now he needs to come in, as otherwise he lets me come in for that potential switch at the end of the round. Knights engage the front of my position and claim the center height some more and take 2 attacks. I think only getting 2 attacks here, though, instead of 4, means there was a development issue at some point, because whenever you come in, you want to be ready to maximize all of those attacks, as now I get at least 3 shots back at those 2 knights. And those 2 attacks do both whiff. I end up not bonding again here, as I don't have an open space for Grimnack to scoot forward into yet, and bring 1 more heavy forward to get the max 4 attacks in, and kill both knights. Now that I've drawn first blood, I can just sit on height and force knights to come at me for the rest of the game, as long as I stay up on partial card scoring. I think Gilbert accidentally moves too far here, as the path he took would have required 6 move to avoid the LEA, but apparently I missed that in-game, and he kills a heavy. He rolls a 2 for dispatch and gets a bit of development, then knights come in by Gilbert while taking height in the middle. Sir H is taking the fight to level ground where he can here, which makes sense, and gets 1 more heavy kill from those 2 knights. Now I've got some interesting options with Grimnack. He could come off his perch and start chomping towards Gilbert, but I won't be able to fully screen him off if he does that, and he'll be exposed to Grimnack boosted knights, which is too risky given that I'm ahead here. I end up rotating Grimnack around the far side instead, away from Gilbert, where I can get chomp off, and then screen him far more effectively, including getting a heavy on max height that's still in Narak's aura. I send 3 heavies over to Grimnack to cover his height, and fill in the spot where the heavy died the turn before, and take 3 attacks, getting 2 kills. Gilbert moves back and takes a shot up at a heavy, who blocks the 3v5. Big block here, as if I'd missed it, knights would have been able to get height on Narak. But now Gilbert is in a really bad position going into the switch, so it was a high upside, high downside play for Sir H here. He then rolls a 3 for dispatch. Knights get 3 attacks off, but miss all 3 of them. I once again have a lot of Grimnack options here. He could move into the dead center of the map, but I won't be able to fill in the other single hex 4 height spot with a heavy this turn, unless Grimnack also gets the 2v4 kill. He could come back to where he was before and support heavies, though that has less upside if I get the switch because I'm not chomping. He could go into the ice and chomp a knight, which is what I end up doing, because I can then surround him with heavies to protect him in case I lose initiative, so he's fairly safe, and I get the chomp upside. I cover his height spot with a heavy and move 3 others, 1 blocking Narak's height, another blocking where Gilbert could boost a knight into Grimnack, and the last covering the final Grimnack height spot. I get 3 attacks in here, killing 2 knights but failing to wound Gilbert. Pretty big initiative roll coming up here, which I lose. If I'd won it, I had a ton of great options for where Grimnack could go, and heavies would have had height basically everywhere. But I still positioned to limit the downside when I lose initiative. Gilbert uses the disengage glyph to take height, but I block the 4v5. Gilbert then rolls a 1 on dispatch. Knights fill in most of the gaps, including 1 heighted spot, and engage Narak with 1 knight. Knights miss the Narak attack, kill 1 heavy, and put 1 wound on Grimnack. Another interesting spot for Grimnack. I could retreat and kill the knight by Narak, but the double LEA is rough. I could stay where I am and completely surround myself with heavies, which is safe. I could move forward 1 spot and take that knight off height and then replace him, which I end up doing. This is a bit more vulnerable, but the upside is also way higher. Heavies replace him on height and fill in around Grimnack as much as I can, and I also send 1 to get height on the dude on disengage. I have a great turn here and kill 3 knights and put 1 wound on Gilbert. Gilbert stays where he is and puts another wound on Grimnack. Knights fill in a bit and put 1 wound on Narak and kill 1 heavy. Grimnack has nowhere good to go, so he stays and chomps the knight, and then manages a very lucky 2 wounds into Gilbert off the 2v5. At this point, the only way I lose is if my heroes die way too quickly, so I spend all my heavy movements to protect Grimnack and get an extra attack at the one near Narak. I get the knight near Grimnack, but miss the knight near Narak. Gilbert swings at Grimnack again, but I block it. There's 6 knights left, and this is Sir H's order marker 3, with me still having my 3 after. Knights put another wound on Narak, but don't kill any heavies. Grimnack doesn't have anywhere good to go, so I just take the chomp roll at Gilbert, and happen to hit it, so Gilbert dies, and Sir H concedes at this point with 6 knights left versus a wounded Grimnack and Narak with 12 heavies and Marku. Fun game. Obviously a few things went well for me to end with such a skewed final game state, but I do think heavies are the favorite here. Also, a very different playstyle in this game for the heavies than what you saw from my all-time tournament videos with them, as all 5 of those opponents had some ranged piece, while Sir Heroscape didn't here, which allows me to be a lot more conservative with my heroes and expose them to less early risk. To wrap up this video series, I want to highlight the upcoming convention schedule for anyone watching this who wants to join on in. Battlefront Dayton and ZachCon are 2 shorter conventions happening later this year, both on the second weekend of November. Battlefront Dayton is in Ohio, and ZachCon is in Massachusetts. SaskCon, Hexacon, and Scape Summit are larger multi-day conventions happening next year, with SaskCon being in North Carolina in January, Hexacon being in Kentucky at the end of February, and Scape Summit being in Utah at the end of May. ScapeCon, the biggest and awesomest of all Heroscape conventions, returns to Indianapolis in July. And then GenCon will also be in Indianapolis at the end of July. There's plenty of local events around the US in the meantime, which you can find by looking either on Heroscape.org or Battle Network. I'm looking forward to the 2026 conventions and hope to see some of y'all there.